Hi guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Ina and today I will talk to you about cattleyas. I know that has been a common theme here, but for various reasons. And to be honest, I do have some cattleyas at this point in time and I've learned a lot about them. So what I will do here today with you is I'll tell you a little bit about my journey with cattleyas, why they were not doing well in the beginning, what are my current issues with them, and how I overcame some of them, and how my cattleyas are doing at this point in time, and how I got the results that I got. So, it's a bit to be covered here. It is very specific about my own experience. Just to start, and to let you know, I have some cattleyas here with me. They're not the most beautiful things, but they are just sitting here near me because otherwise I wouldn't have things to show you. But let's start. So first of all, thinking about where I live in London, in the UK, and I have long winters, very dark winters as well. Depending on my heating system inside my house to keep the temperature evenly across the year. Also, I use artificial light. That's the only way for me to have the amount of orchids that I have inside my flat. So, what happened is, when I start growing orchids, when I start having my first cattleyas, many years ago before I started my YouTube channel, I watched many videos, I researched online to see how to look after cattleyas. And I remember thinking, oh, it's going to be okay because we have Phalaenopsis. So then we start trying new things and seeing what's happening. We need to research beforehand. However, we need to consider that people have different environments. So the plants might not do so well here where I live, how they do in other environments. And that was my first issue with my cattleyas because I do live in a place that tends to be, as I said, more towards the cool climate than the hot climate. I potted my cattleyas with more moss than I should. I also repotted them in the inadequate mix. Didn't let them dry as they should dry. I was offering them more artificial light and the light wasn't very bright. So just to cover, most cattleyas, not all of them, some miniatures might be a little bit different and might be able to bloom and rebloom with a different light. But most cattleyas, especially the bigger ones, they do require bright light. And in my case specifically, since I have these super bright windows here behind me, I tend to have this space for my highlight plants because I noticed that my cattleyas, they do much better when they are exposed to this light. And I thought that they would do amazingly well under my growing light. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I don't have the right spectrum of growing light for them. Probably. So first off, I discovered that my growing lights were not really good for them. So I remember having my first blooming cattleya that bloomed with me when they were here sitting behind me on this windowsill because the light is amazing. Although I do have a cool winter, but I do have good light here. So that's the right position. Is, if I'm not mistaken, in south and east exposure here. Anyways, the brightest light that we have here in the UK. And it's perfect for my cattleyas. They do much better than what they do under artificial lighting. That's what I learned while growing these plants. The second thing is watering. What I notice is something is weird. My cattleyas are losing all of their roots. When you repot your cattleyas, they tend to lose their roots. Then, if you start rotting the roots of your cattleyas, when they are finally pushing back in your root system, you have great chance to lose your cattleyas. They will die easily without any roots. So, what happened again? Yes, I didn't know how to properly water them with my climate. Remember, that's not very hot. So, because it's not extremely hot, the mix tends to dry a little bit slower than maybe in other places. So I had to learn how to balance my potting mix using more bark, less moss, watering it only when it actually needs some water, and in my case, it's when the potting mix is completely dry. I need to have it all dry. I'm not mentioning all the aerial roots that you can offer some water from time to time. You don't need to wait for it. You don't need to wait for it to dehydrate it. It's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, for me to avoid root rot, in my type of environment specifically, I like to wait for the mix to dry out, and then I offer some water again. It helped me in my process of understanding how these plants work. Talking about that, this one has a sheet. Oh gosh, can't believe. Okay, I'll stop doing that. So it took me many years to understand how that process works. I lost so many cattleyas. You probably have seen some of that. I've told you about my struggles with cattleyas many times. So it's probably one of the plants that I spent more money buying more, apart from Phalaenopsis. Yeah. So taking these out, I learned how to pot it in a more type of adequate mix. Also, I tend to offer it not super large pots if the plant's not large, because as I said, my mix tends to be more, because my environment is more towards the cool to intermediate type of temperature, I tend to offer the type of pots that I can keep my plants there for maybe a year or 2 years. I don't overpot it to avoid it to be extremely wet inside the pot. But that's just because of my environment and the mix that I use. Overpotting is not an issue if you know how to work with that. I know that what helped me in this case specifically was to work with smaller pots sometimes. After that, I noticed that with time, wasn't a miracle, was with time, I started having good results. So some of my cattleyas were finally pushing new growths and finally blooming. Then what happened? Pests. I started having infestations that I've never had before. And the first infestation was, not the first, but the worst infestation was thrips. So, thrips doesn't, no, they do affect cattleyas. They munch on the cattleyas buds. So they will go inside the sheets of your cattleyas and they will destroy anything that can grow in there. They will also munch your plants, and I had issues with thrips and cattleyas. I cannot even count how many times I lost my plants due to pests. Anyway, again, I sprayed all of my collection. I cannot say that it's 100% clean, but now I finally can see that my plants are doing okay, and I don't see grazings, I don't see weird stuff in the leaves that's related to pests. What else? Okay, free of pests finally. So I have more buds, my cattleyas are finally blooming, growing. I have some other issues, and I'm going to talk to you about some of them while I film them, why some cattleyas are still not looking very good. Some of them, they were taken back. They didn't push out a growth that could grow very much or very well because of pests. Some of the roots died on the process. So that's the case of this one that's hanging in there, but you see lots of very dark dots on the leaves, and that's probably deficiency. Since the roots are not growing well and that they are not absorbing nutrients, the leaves, they tend to show and they are a little bit weird. I think they will be normal again, or green and nice and flash, as soon as the roots start to grow inside the potting mix, and this plant will be a little bit, let's say, better. Another thing that I encountered as well, let's change, is fungus. Believe it or not, I have a fungi infestation in some of my plants. London is known to have lots of moldy and fungus around because of the humid environment. And what happened with some of my plants? they start to have these like whitish mold on their leaves. But we say, oh, very easy. No, was some sort of mold that actually can destroy your plant if you don't take good care of it. And the good care is not hydrogen peroxide, because I tried, and didn't work. So I lost blood for this kind of fungus as well. I bought a fungicide. I don't know if that's the name. It's like a pesticide. It's a terrible smell, to be honest. And I spray it down. Not only this cattleya is one example, I've done with some of my Vandaceas as well. That's now finally pushing out roots since it's clean from fungus, which is perfect. And what else I've encountered, and now I finally have a terrible example for you. And that's something that I cannot cure, I cannot treat, and I don't know if I can do something about it. This one is the plant that I bought in Brazil. It's beautiful, beautiful cattleya. Gonna come close to me, maybe you can see. I think these dark dots here, they are a virus. I cannot test, I will never know for sure, but I think this is a virus. And if that's the case, I don't know if this plant will be able to succeed. Anyway, it's full of roots. It's pushing out a new growth. This growth here have already bloomed. So it's one of these cattleyas that push, I think, one growth per year. And then probably will bloom once a year. It's pretty sad that it has virus. But I think this plant came with scales as well. And I think scales are able to transmit and to share virus. I'm not sure. So anyway, I'm a little bit scared because the other cattleya that I brought from Brazil is a little bit weird. It's not growing amazingly, but that's the last thing that I encountered. It can happen. So that's why we usually don't share water, because if the plant has some serious fungus or maybe some sort of virus, it won't be shared. What I can say is that's a little bit sad, but it is what it is, right? And put it back. So, after all these years and all the learning curve, I know that's true right here, and you have seen this plant already. It's still in bloom. I'm not gonna bother too much because of the background. You probably cannot see the white very well. However, I am finally having some very good results. With all the learning that I had in the past few years, I have cattleyas. They're finally pushing out buds, sheets that looks like they will bloom and rebloom, and it makes me so happy because cattleyas flowers, they are amazing. Usually they are perfumey, they have different colors, different shapes, and it's amazing to have cattleyas in bloom inside my flat in London. So not only I have here a miniature cattleya that I showed you before, I think this one is the kind of cattleya that will bloom and rebloom many times a year. There is another one that was in bloom last year that has some sort of waxy red petals and sepals, and I think there is some buds that are coming from that. I also have one that's a brassicatleya that will bloom for me soon. On top of that, I do have this cattleya that I repotted here with you one day while we were talking, and I can see a sheet inside, and this one was just repotted. Who would have thought? So, I can say now confidently that not only I have a collection of cattleyas, not all of them are doing amazing well. Some of them have issues, but that's normal because plants, they have issues as well. But they are being able to bloom, rebloom, push out new growths and push out lovely roots inside their pots. And I want to share that with you. That's my journey with cattleyas. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and let me know your thoughts about cattleyas. I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!